Hi everyone, good afternoon, good morning, whatever time zone you're in. So I'd like to welcome everyone in the Managing Reskilling Challenges to Navigate Today's Digital New Normal webinar, which is a webinar organized by Asian Development Bank along with Singapore Fintech Association and the Banking Financial Services Union. And we actually have supporting partners that we'd actually like to thank, which is SkillsFuture, E2I, the Employment and Employability Institute, and National University of Singapore. We'd like to welcome everyone since in the post-COVID-19 world, upskilling and reskilling the workforce in all sectors of digital skills is the key to actually increase productivity and employability. So, which is why we're emphasizing the importance of public and private collaboration in the creation of conducive environment to the workforce to reskill and maintain relevance in the post-COVID world. So, which is why we actually partnered up with experts in the public and private sector of Singapore alongside with our experts from Asian Development Bank to discuss in a panel the importance of the collaboration to support the workers to be future ready and hear insights and ideas on how challenges and constraints regarding reskilling could be managed in developing countries. So to introduce one of our organizers, which is first Asian Development Bank, I'd like to give the microphone to Marc, who is our technology specialist at the Digital Innovation Sandbox program.
Thank you very much, Alenna, and good morning, good afternoon to everybody, wherever you're connecting from. It's a pleasure and a privilege to introduce this great webinar with our partner, the Singapore Fintech Association. We got the great speakers lined up, and they will introduce themselves in a short while. But just to set a little bit the context, this webinar is organized as part of an overall year-long hackathon series that the Asian Development Bank is organizing. This is something that we've launched a couple of months ago, and we'll see a series of very specific online challenge organized around a number of key thematic areas important to the region, focusing specifically on health and well-being, economic development, enhancing capacity of governments to deal with the COVID-19 crisis, as well as education, which is the thematic area that brings us together today. In this overall hackathon, we're really seeking innovative solution using digital technology to address the COVID-19 crisis, and probably more importantly, rather than addressing some specific ongoing challenge, to look at shaping the future, creating the new normal as this crisis is unfolding. So these challenges are typically 2 to 3 months long, and will reach out to startups, students, researchers from private or public organization, so that they come together on our open innovation platform at challenges.adb.org to create and co-create a solution. This is part of the ADB digital transformation, which is something that ADB had embarked on a couple of years ago, and this open innovation platform is really a key element in supporting that transformation. Digital innovation is only possible with partnerships, and we are very honored and privileged to partner with the Singapore Fintech Association. We've run a couple of events and activities together with them, and I just want to hand it over to Hock Lai to give a couple of opening remarks, but I really want to thank him and his team once again to put this webinar together. Hock Lai, over to you, please.
Thank you, Marc. Good afternoon, everyone. First, again, I would like to thank our co-organizing partner, Asian Development Bank and the Banking and Financial Services Union, and also our supporting partners, the Employment and Employability Institute, NUS Fintech Lab, and SkillsFuture Singapore. Yeah, I think I've been attending over the last 3 to 4 weeks quite a number of events and webinars along the theme of reskilling, future of work, fourth industry revolution. So these are the buzzwords. I think some of my upcoming webinars are also along that theme. So I think this is an important topic. Some of you might have heard of the statistics posted by the World Economic Forum that within the next 3 years, close to half of us will require some form of reskilling. And I think that was published before COVID-19. I think that 3-year timeline has been brought forward to now. Yeah, so after attending all the past few webinars, I'd like to synthesize and summarize some of my learnings. Basically, the top 4 hard skills and the top 4 soft skills that should allow us to survive or even thrive in this new normal. Yeah, first, the 4 are hard skills. Some of you probably would have heard of the ABCDs of Fintech. So basically, artificial intelligence, blockchain, cloud computing, and data or big data. So frequently, all these technologies will be used in combination to create innovative new digital services. In the banking and financial services scenario, for example, likely you will be interacting with a fintech application on your mobile phone that is often powered by artificial intelligence. For example, through the chatbot behind is actually running natural language understanding and processing. And frequently, the platform itself, the backend platform is running on cloud computing. And sometimes blockchain is used when there's a need for a peer-to-peer interaction, or when there's a need for more security or more provenance of the data. And very often, a lot of data points are being generated through all these interactions, whether is it structured data or unstructured data, including where you are, how fast you type, or what you type in your chatbot, right? Again, all these are big data that are being processed, again, feedback into the AI model to create even better services or better fraud detection algorithms. Yeah, and I believe all these 4 hard skills are equally applicable to other industries, not just the fintech industry. And then I frequently hear people say, "Oh, okay, all these are the hard skills. Not everyone are so technically inclined, right?" So luckily, there's also another 4 soft skills which I think are very useful. So you don't need to have all the hard skills. First, again, going by the ABCD framework. First is being adaptable and agile. Adaptable to all the changes and being agile in making all the changes. I believe Brother Patrick later can elaborate more about learning on the go, speed to market. The second point is really about being bold in thinking critically, bold in thinking creatively, pushing boundaries to be innovative, but more importantly, be bold in making decisions. Because very often we will be making decisions under a lot of uncertainties. It's important to make the decision. However, when there are new data points coming in, we must go back to point A again, being agile and adaptable to quickly make the necessary changes. And the third one is called C, basically is about having a collaborative mindset, be communicative, and being adopting a customer orientation and empathy when we are following the principles of A and B, because I think the part on emotional intelligence, being the ability to interact with others, is even more important during this low contact, low touch environment. And then the last D is what I call digital literacy, because I think not everyone can or want to be a data scientist, or not everyone can or want to be a blockchain programmer, but we need to understand how data works, be data literate, know how to operate all the, for example, the data visualization tools such as Tableau, and understand how blockchain work at the high level, and what is the implication on the business, what are the strengths and weaknesses in order to make effective decision. So the last day I call it a a soft hard skill, which is highly digitally literate. So this all my learning for the past few weeks. I hope that you can find it useful. But I believe later the expert panelists can show you even more things. So looking forward to it. Thank you. Over to you, Alenna.
Thank you so much for that great introduction, Mark and Hock Lai. And to start with our event, I'd like to introduce Prof. Keith Carter of the National University of Singapore, who will be our moderator. And he is actually the co-director of the Crystal Center, a cryptocurrency think tank, and the director of NUS Fintech Lab. Prof. Keith Carter.
Hey, good afternoon and good morning, good evening, everyone, wherever you may be. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'm so glad that we had a nice opening here from Marc and Hock Lai. One of the key points that Hock Lai talked about was, you know, jobs have changed, skills have changed so much. Quoting the World Economic Forum, 50%. Wow, Hock Lai, I even have a lot of more training I need to take in that case. In addition, the same group, the World Economic Forum in 2017 had given the warning that 35% of workers would not be prepared for their jobs in 2020. And who would have thought that was close to being correct, but now it's here. One other aspect that's very strange has been, of course, the growth in the market cap of data-only companies. The top 5 market cap companies in September 2020 are all data-driven. Apple, Microsoft, etc. And replacing Facebook has now become Alibaba as well. So for the first time, we're seeing a Chinese company that's data-driven come into the top 5 global market cap. So the world has really shifted. And if that's the size that we've and the focus where everything has been going, how could the jobs not change? Those are all new business models compared to Exxon and Citibank, some of the organizations that were in the top market cap back in 2001. So we've seen that all change, and I'm so glad to be joined here by some team members here that will bring you through the perspectives of reskilling and upskilling. I wanted to first introduce and each one will give about just a quick moment of their introduction. Marc Fung from SkillsFuture. Marc, can you introduce yourself, please?
Thanks, Keith. It's Michael. Thank you for the invitation to be part of this panel. I think we're going to have a really interesting discussion around upskilling and reskilling. I'm from SkillsFuture Singapore. We are a government agency, and our focus is on upskilling and reskilling the workforce. So we set policies and we provide funding for those efforts. Glad to be here.
Thank you. And I'll go to Atul, joining us on LinkedIn.
Thank you, Prof. Keith. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Atul and I work with LinkedIn based out of Singapore. And we are sitting at this juncture where we have so much data that is giving us trends on upcoming skills and jobs in demand. So just super excited to be here and walk you through some of the insights that we are seeing, number one. And number two, how can we help you prepare as professionals for these changing times? We see signals of confidence and positivity, and just be excited to share some of these insights and trends with you this afternoon. Thank you, Prof. Keith.
All right, and Patrick from NTUC.
Hi everyone. So glad to be part of this panel. Yeah, I represent the National Trades Union Congress, the Labour Movement of Singapore, but at the same time also as one of the co-organizers. So a big thank you to Asian Development Bank as well as Singapore Fintech Association for partnering Banking and Financial Services Union, which I'm the Executive Secretary. So I think we've been busy, particularly in Singapore the last many months, grappling with many of the challenges, particularly with a softening or weakening of the labor market. So I'm actually kept quite busy, not just looking after the financial sector, but across many other sectors which have been impacted. So I look forward to the discussion and sharing later on, and on this how we're going to get workers and organizations to pivot amidst all this digitalization, transformation, and challenges that lie ahead?
A great challenge indeed. And then we have Shanti from the Asia Development Bank. Shanti.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for including me in this eminent and very diverse panel. It's a privilege. I work for the Asian Development Bank's Education Sector Group. I work with education policy reforms, new directions in terms of education, education operations supported by ADB. More specifically, recently, I've been working on the implications of Industry 4.0 on skills and jobs. We are concerned with how skills development can help to support access to and transition to high quality jobs. So those are some of the aspects we are working with. And more recently, due to the COVID, we are also deliberating a lot on how education sector operations should to respond to this whole new world that's emerging, the new normal that's emerging post-COVID, and how can we help our developing member countries to refashion the way they deliver education to serve this new normal. So this is a very timely panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Shanti. And I'd love to start with you, actually, especially since you've gone into the Industry 4.0, the impact. And I loved that aspect that you highlighted. You know, they can become more valuable jobs, perhaps more impactful jobs, and probably as a result, more comfortable as well. Could you share a little bit about what you're seeing in ADB in this area?
Thank you. Okay, so let me start with the study that we recently concluded. We did because the bulk of ADB's education operations are in skills development for jobs. So they are basically in response to the demands from policymakers in the countries that we work in. So it's jobs, quality jobs are at the heart of the development paradigm. So we did the study to assess the implications of Industry 4.0 in 4 countries in ASEAN. We looked at 4 countries and 2 sectors in each country. And as you know, there's been in the initial phase of this whole Industry 4.0, there's a lot of fear around loss of jobs due to automation. However, what the study found was that most of these all these sectors are going to lead to net job gains due to the application of new technologies, net productivity gains, and net job gains. But the transition will not be seamless without the investment in requisite skills development. So that's what is kind of coming through across the board in all the sectors that we studied, that there are going to be jobs, but skills will be the currency that will help people access those jobs that are going to become available. And the study also showed the very significant shift away from routine tasks and lower order tasks to higher order functions, problem solving, and higher order tasks and higher order job profiles as a result of the Industry 4.0. All the employers that we surveyed, a good majority of them also indicated that skills is likely to be a constraint in being able to access and deploy those technologies in the most effective way, and also to amplify the competitive advantage of those sectors in the respective countries. So, so this is what we found in Cambodia, Indonesia, Philippines, and Vietnam in the sectors that we studied. So the job gains were ranging from 2% to as much as 34% expected job gains from Industry 4.0. Wow. The other thing that we found was that the training institutions were not quite in sync with this expected new demand. So their ability to transform their offerings to serve these new expected digital skills and Industry 4.0 skills tended to be slower, and there was a lot of mismatch between the expectations of employers and the readiness of training institutions. So what we feel like is that skills are really going to be the bridging element to be able to move to the new paradigm, move to deploying these new technologies, and to move up the value chain for these countries to reap higher returns in global markets.
Did I hear you correctly? You said up to even 34% growth. Wow, that's a nice percentage. And we've seen it here in Singapore as well. It's really refreshing to hear that jobs will increase and that your study has shown this as well. We look back at Singapore in 1900 and there was about 400,000 people here 100 years ago plus. Now there's 5.5 million, but the jobs are completely different, of course, right? And yet, of course, what in Singapore is one of the lowest unemployments in the world. Well, I'd like to connect the dots here between what you talked about, the new types of roles, and Michael, in regards to SkillsFuture. You have a great framework and you share about your organization puts together some of what people need to know and learn. Michael, can you share a little bit about that?
Thanks, Keith. Thanks, Shanti. A lot of what Shanti said resonates with me, and I think resonates with what we've been trying to do in Singapore. So as we look at the kinds of disruptions, technology is one of them, but there are also disruptions in terms of aging population, for example. So people having to work longer, be more, work productive for a longer period of their lives. The declining birth rates in Singapore, so shrinking workforce, the need to increase productivity. And of course, if you look at COVID, that's had a major impacts because of public safety, public health considerations. So you put all these drivers together, it just points to what we are seeing in the jobs and skills marketplace, which is the fact that jobs and skills are becoming obsolete at a much faster pace than it used to be before. And so an individual, we truly believe, would require to be upskilled multiple times in their lives. And that requires an educational and training system that is responsive, that's agile, and that adapts with the changing business needs, changing technological needs of companies, and so on. So here, through the, in Singapore's context, through the SkillsFuture movement, we work across multiple stakeholders, including companies, training institutions. We've mobilized the Institutes of Higher Learning, including National University of Singapore. We work with the unions to mobilize workers. And as a system, we have systematically put in place resources, opportunities, and support for the ongoing upscaling of the workforce. Let me also just share that as we look ahead, one of the big questions that we face, and many regional countries face as well, is what are the new skills that we need? It's great that we want to support the needs, but what skills specifically do we need? And so here we work with the industry, we work with leading companies and thinkers in the space of different industry sectors, and we produce 34 skills frameworks across about 80% of our economy. And in the skills frameworks, we map out what's the technical hard skills that Hock Lai talked about, the soft skills that are needed to be adaptable and think critically, but also the emerging skills that's going to impact the different jobs. And that provides a blueprint for us to structure our interventions. I'll just stop there.
Would you be open to sharing that skills framework as well with all the participants?
Certainly. Let me put a link in the chat box, and participants can go to the website. It's open. You can refer to the skills frameworks.
Wonderful. I think that'll be a great reference for all of us. And I'd like to connect that with a tool. Since you talked about, Michael, the commercial aspect and the companies needing to be involved, and a tool joining us from LinkedIn today, perhaps you can share, on both two sides. One is the side of what does LinkedIn need in terms of skill set? What are you looking for? Because I think let's just get real. Maybe something right now at LinkedIn is open. On the other side though, what are you seeing as being posted on LinkedIn and in terms of education, the types of skills that people are taking and developing most? Atul.
Absolutely, thank you. And great to have you here, Michael, because I'm a proud and happy recipient of SkillsFuture grants myself, and this speaks to me personally a lot. So at LinkedIn, with the data that we have globally, just 706 million members, 55 million companies, 11 million job listings, it gives us a lot of signals to spot in-demand skills, emerging jobs, and global hiring patterns. And what we started doing post-COVID is really to identify the jobs that are in demand, coming up, and that are very well positioned to continue to grow. And I don't like to talk about jobs as much as skills, because skills are are more relevant and more topical, and that would help you to get one of these new jobs or upcoming jobs. And we went one level deeper really, because we wanted to see jobs or skills that you could learn that don't necessarily need a degree, would give you a livable wage, and you could successfully gain these skills or learn these courses online. And three specific titles emerged around software developer, number one, number two, customer service, and number three, data analyst. And these are global trends, but when we dive deeper into some of the countries that Shanti was talking about, there are not that many differences. Perhaps software developer, software engineer, or front-end developer versus back-end developer, slight nuances there. So these are the hottest skills that are coming up. And at LinkedIn, again, we went one step ahead, and I'll put the link in the framework, which is opportunity.linkedin.com. So the skills and the courses that you need to compete for these jobs, we've actually opened them for all our members. And since July this year, about 10 million professionals around the world have taken these courses and have been successfully able to apply for jobs. And that brings me full circle to Prof. Keith, that you were talking about. What are we looking for at LinkedIn? So we drink what we brew is what I would like to say. So all our jobs are open on LinkedIn. Do connect with me. Happy to refer you to any of those jobs. And we are still growing, and we are looking for technical skills as well as some of our business support functions based out of Singapore, and that goes all the way from legal, finance, human resources, so on and so forth. Back to you, Prof.
Thanks, Atul. Nice, and we'll love to see that framework as well. It sounds like we'll come away from this with some really good foundations. Patrick, every worker matters, and even more so during this time. Can you share with us what you're seeing? What's it like out there, and being in the union directly? You probably have a pretty clear view of what's happening.
Yeah, we know the COVID-19 pandemic has brought about great transformation, not just in different sectors, in different countries, right down to even the different companies and different production lines. So I think there are a lot of developments and changes and transformation. In fact, if I may share our so-called Singapore journey in the last couple of years, even prior to COVID-19, we have been getting everyone up to speed, with Smart Nation, with Michael earlier alluded to SkillsFuture, working very, very closely with the various industries. In fact, 23 different industries. So in partnership with Michael's team, which has come up with skills framework to identify where are the in-demand skills. The various 23 different sectors actually come together, tripartite partners in this 23 different clusters and sectors to look at where the future jobs are. But of course, as we were driving the digital agenda to train and upskill workers across industries, sectors, and at companies, I think one key thing has happened is that in the last 6 months, it has accelerated many of these learnings, in particular, the need for digital skills and how imperative it is to equip yourself with some of these abilities and capabilities to manage tech and virtual kind of environments. So we have seen companies and businesses, in fact, in the last 6 months, have been quite an awakening. We've seen companies that have managed to pivot and to ride the wave of change. But we've also seen companies that have not been able to do that and have been going downhill. So I think it's a awakening for many companies and businesses. At the same time, also workers. I think we have, despite the fact that in Singapore, in other parts of the world, we call it the lockdown. In Singapore, we call it a circuit breaker. We're seeing a lot more workers going online in assessing learning, training, and development. And I see companies now being, in a way, forced to leverage on technology and the virtual space. Even our students in Singapore are doing home-based learning. So I think the whole entire spectrum of continuous education and training has taken a new form and a new imperative. And the labor movement in Singapore, of course, now we are busy with handling many of the layoffs, the unemployment. Though, like what Prof mentioned earlier, we are one of the lowest unemployment in the world, but say all you want, is still challenging times. In terms of actual numbers, it's still big. And we have aging population problem, as highlighted by Michael earlier. So it exacerbates the whole challenge and issue that that confront us in Singapore. So we have sort of like well, some say at an inflection point, some say at a point of a point where we had to make critical decisions to be able to ride the wave of change. So I think what I'm seeing on the ground is a lot more people embracing tech, embracing the virtual and the e-space, particularly so with this low-touch economy and the fact that this will possibly be not just the new normal, but the next normal. So I think that's one big thing that I'm seeing, at the company lines and in the various industries. So I think it has made the digital agenda much more smoother, faster, and now more pervasive. But at the same time, also bring with it challenges. I'm sure many of you operate in some of other developing countries as well. So, Singapore is developed, but I think all said and done. A good anecdote, if I may share, is during a circuit breaker period, I know of organizations who are very, very tech savvy, and especially the top management, middle management. But when they started issuing laptops and pro cameras and stuff like that to all the employees, thinking that everyone will be able to connect in via virtual town hall and run the company like what it used to be. But lo and behold, not every worker is up to speed in managing some of this technology. Take for me, for example, in the last 6 months, I've used so much virtual meetings and conference software that more than what I've used in the last 25 years of my life. So you can imagine even myself picking up the skills and trying to operate and navigate. I can imagine it will be quite a mouthful and a handful for many of the workers out there. So we are busy in that, but I'm glad to share that I do see many workers in general, not just the young, the not so young workers are also, embracing some of these tech and being able to operate much more smoother and easy, better these days.
Thank you, Patrick, and you're so true. We've been on Zoom. We probably have dreams about Zoom these days. So now I want to turn to, from the working side, people that have had to upskill and learn and so forth, over to the management side. What type of mindset do managers need to have? And Hock Lai, you listed out some of the key, Hock Lai had listed out these different skill sets that people need to have. Well, what does a manager need to be doing, thinking, in order to have their business succeed? And even hire someone with these new skills and such that LinkedIn and NUS and others are trying to provide people. I open it to anyone who wants to answer this.
Keith, let me take a stab at this. I think what we really need managers to do, and managers coming from the perspective of companies, is to embrace the fact that businesses need to transform. As Patrick mentioned, even before COVID, we've been working hard at supporting transformation across multiple industries, because we want those industries to continue to be competitive. We want companies to create good jobs and be able to continue to thrive, even as as technology evolves, as the markets evolve. So companies, in order to move on to new opportunities, they must be willing to change the way they do business, especially with the availability of technology. And so, for example, banks have had to rethink the whole model, how to leverage on technology, data, and now we're talking about digital banks as well. So mindset, I think, is critically important for management of companies, to embrace the fact that they need to transform before they are disrupted. The unfortunate truth is COVID has actually forced many companies to transform because out of necessity. Those who still refuse to transform obviously have withered away. But we've seen heartening stories of many companies that are willing to transform. Now, but companies can't really transform on their own without their employees on board. So employees need to be able to embrace a mindset of change and have the right skills for the transformation. So I think managers have to create that kind of environments within their organizations to innovate, to transform, and to support the skilling efforts of the employees.
Prof. Keith, I'll add a little bit to that. So it does definitely start with the belief that the change is here. And very often I speak to leaders and they are looking for ROI, return on investment upfront when they want to make an investment in education or online learning, which is very difficult to do because a lot of these returns are going to come down the years. And an example is none of us were prepared or planned for COVID, but a business that had an online presence was better equipped to handle than one without. Now, and you can't prepare for that overnight. So it's really preparing for the long term. And that's a rude awakening that COVID has given us. Number two, I would say trust the employees with learning, because it's very difficult to micromanage and see how many hours are you spending or how many modules are you completing. And again, that's a bit of change in mindset, but it is trusting the employees that they want to learn and they want to get better at their jobs or for the new jobs. That could be jobs of the future. And lastly is really encouraging and appreciating best practices and trends. And we see this in bits and spots here and there is really the spirit of learning culture being built. And we've seen this in Singapore with some insurance firms, even with Singapore Law Society, where we were speaking just yesterday. An industry like law is being disrupted by digital, and they are embracing lawyers to now upskill on digital skills, including Zoom, which is one of the hottest courses on LinkedIn Learning, actually. So it's quite interesting to see how everything is just accelerated, but the mindset shift really starts at the top with the leadership and management in companies and organizations.
And I like how, Michael, you talked about it's the job of both the owners, the business leaders, to push forward and look at what transformation set like a vision, but then also the employees have to follow along in this and be part of it as well. Shanti, I'd love to hear your perspective on this too. What are you seeing in developing countries, and both again from the manager's perspective, and how supportive, how ready are they to get on board with the Asian Development Bank on these?
I would really very much agree with Atul and Michael in the way they portrayed the importance of continuous learning. I think this whole thing about, usually we find that traditional education institutions are very skewed towards learning by entry level, and it also mostly around institution-based learning. So both of these this has been broken. The barriers, if you like, the institutional barriers have been broken because of the whole blended training opportunity that now has become available. And also this whole idea that you can learn in bite-sized modules. So you don't have to, set aside a huge chunk of time, several months or even years to invest in training. But you can, have a continuous process of training and upskilling through bite-sized learning modules. And now also credentials are also now increasingly available to micro credentials, online credentials, micro masters, nano degrees. These are all inventions in the recent past. So the whole paradigm of learning is changing. And I think this is where we need training institutions to become much more agile, like Michael mentioned, and become adept at providing lifelong learning opportunities. And on the employers and the employee side as well, the same, the investing in continuous learning also means that you remain up to date, and it's an investment you need to make to remain relevant in the workforce. It's no longer an option, it's a necessity. With jobs becoming obsolete at such a rapid pace, if you did not invest in it, you're going to become very quickly obsolete, and then re-entry will become even more challenging. So both for employers and for employees, it's become imperative to think about these elements. For employers, it is more like having a good cohort of employers who are well trained and are also lifelong learners. They're having that learning to learn has become so important now. And from the employee side, to remain relevant and to become, to be able to make the progress in the labor market is critical for them to invest in learning.
If I may chime in, Prof, I thought particularly important is this concept of speed to market. very, very important, particularly with, I mean, prior to COVID-19, we have Industry 4.0, Digital 4.0, and really transformation at a very rapid pace. And of course, what we call the VUCA world. But COVID-19 has shown that there's a lot of companies pivoting, reorganizing, re-strategizing. So I think that there's a sharp change in the way they do things and the things they need to do. So I think institutes of higher learning, whether training providers, training centers, partners, will play a very critical role. It also includes companies as well as industry associations and trade associations to be able to deliver some of this training. And as shared earlier, modular, bite-sized, blended, virtual. I think it's going to be a combination of everything to be able to get to be able to be responsive, so that we can pick up the necessary skills on the go in time and as contemporaneously get the info as possible, so that we'll be able to pivot even faster and come out and ride the wave of change. So definitely speed to market is something which organizations, CET institutions will need to embrace.
Yeah, I'd make a quick addition to that. This, this workplace-based training is also becoming really important going forward. Our study also showed that nearly 3/4 of the employers, and then the whole channel of training that came out as being the most prominent was workplace-based training. So if you're thinking about people staying in the workforce longer and being able to pivot to new industries, this modality of training and learning will become increasingly important. And employers need to think about it.
No, and I'm listening very carefully as being a university in terms of these new learning models as well. So LinkedIn, how many 10 million people and etc. These are really changing times. There's a question around public-private partnerships. Now, how do we, and Patrick, you talked about speed to market. There was kind of some inertia, right? Like if I hire someone and then I train them, they might leave. Or if I spend the time to train them, they're not doing the job I hired them for. These type of inertia points were here. SkillsFuture has been amazing. You roll out the traineeships, you've rolled out so many good programs in terms of courseware, etc., and more. How do we bring these so that the speed to market can even be better than what it is? There's 30,000 jobs open on LinkedIn right now in Singapore in technology. 30,000. How do we, swoop in so that there's less? What do you think?
I think it's a difficult problem, but let me just say that, the traditional model of education is one where we rely heavily on our educational institutions. The educational institutions will sense what the skills is needed, bring it back, redesign the curriculum, deliver it, and then, a person graduates in 2 years, 4 years, whatever it may be. And by that time, given the pace of change of skills, the skills are obsolete. So if you think about the way our traditional education model is structured, it is not very adaptive to rapid change. So I think what we really need is an education paradigm that is a lot more flexible and agile. And we attempt to do that in the Singapore context through SkillsFuture, leaning heavily on companies who are leading knowledge creation in new fields. So for example, in AI, in digitalization, arguably companies like Google, Apple, IBM, Microsoft, they're leading the way in LinkedIn, of course, in defining how AI is used to solve different types of problems. Now, how do we bring that learning and transmit that to our students, but also to our workforce? And that's a difficult problem. And so the strategy we have taken in Singapore is to partner extensively with leading companies to be able to codify that knowledge and to be able to offer these kinds of training in bite-sized modular format and provide the right incentive structure and to bridge the gaps so that if you're a worker in the Singapore workforce, you have access to leading content and knowledge in these emerging fields. And I think that's the way to go. Education institutions like NUS, you've already extensively partnered with companies. We hope that more will be done. And I think to Shanti's earlier point about ensuring that, the system is agile, modular, work-based, I think we believe that countries around the region and around the world will need to be able to embrace continuing education and training system that is fashion likewise, so that it can be agile and up to date with what the needs are.
Yeah, if I may respond as well, I think yes, speed the market, but I think I would say it requires a very multi-stakeholder, many helping hands approach in getting workers and the workforce up to speed and future ready. I think it's not just the universities alone, it's not just industry alone, it's not just the company alone, not just the individual alone, but I think it's a many multi-stakeholder community ecosystem approach. As we have seen, it's different. I mean, we have 23 industry transformation maps. Different industries move at different paces, as well as the workers, the profile of the workers are different, and they have their own way of operating their businesses. Some are global in nature in those industries. Some are more inward-looking kind of industries. So actually, it varies from industry to industry. Therefore, the need to not do a kind of a mass market thing, but not just bespoke, but of course, sort of like a mass customization to be able to cater to the needs of the individual, the organization, as well as the industry. I think increasingly we are going to be, the whole continuous education and training and learning in the education ecosystem is going to be a very closely knit one involving many, many partners. Traditionally, we always have the tripartite partners, but increasingly we are seeing it at a sectoral level. For example, like in the financial sector, which I'm quite actively involved in on behalf of the Banking and Financial Services Union. We work very, very closely, not just with SkillsFuture Singapore and coming out of the SkillsFuture framework, but also with industry players, the Association of Banks, and of course the regulators, Monetary Authority of Singapore, as well as the Institute of Banking and Finance. So I think it's a multi-stakeholder kind of approach. And sometimes different institutes of higher learning may have their own strengths as well. So we partner with different IHLs to leverage on their strengths. And of course, where there are weaknesses, we will try to leverage on those strengths to bring those weaknesses and to build up and to fortify those areas that we are weak at. So I think that will likely be the direction and the way to go as we navigate the next normal.
Prof, I'll just add to that because I have a couple of such interesting data points that echo what Patrick's just sharing. First of which is the industry associations play such a crucial role, and we had 6 times more professionals join an industry association during or post-COVID compared to pre-COVID. That means people are leaning towards fintech associations, and in Philippines we have IBPAP and CCAP, the likes of these, to gain specific knowledge to be upskilled and reskilled in their particular industry, in their particular domain of expertise. And not only do 6 times more people join, they are 3 times more likely to actually complete that course or skills or certification when they are part of this, because there is a sort of peer pressure or a spirit to learn together as a group as compared to doing it by myself. I might be the only one in my company or a group of few people, but when you do it together in the industry, there's a higher likelihood of completing that course as well. And very, very relevant. So I wanted to drop in these 2 nuggets here.
Thank you. It's always good to have data, right? This is a helpful thing. Well, listen, we're at 2:52. I'd love to hear from each one of you. What's your future view? What are you going to be doing as your most top priority next in this area of helping reskilling and upskilling? Shanti, can I start with you?
Okay, I think, there needs to be a really investment in a whole ecosystem. So not only for training, but also for certification, for assessment, also for things like, AI-powered digital platforms for job matching, real-time platforms for job matching. All of this is not yet there in the developing countries that we work in. So there isn't adequate, like with the information revolution, there can be more real-time information back to people who want to study certain types of courses, so they know what the job prospects are. So we need to invest in those as well, not just in, skills around digital capabilities, but also use the digital platforms to strengthen the connect with job markets, and also provide a more ongoing opportunity for everyone to chart their own course in the workforce. And the work life is going to be much longer, and it's going to be changing. It's like there was this very interesting statistic that I picked up from the US Department of Labor. It said that those who are entering the labor market were going to have at least 14, 15 jobs by the time they are even 35. So it's going to be a moving market. So how do we help, not just students, but also those who are in the workforce to make those pivots at the right time to draw on the opportunities? So things like affordable technologies for AR, VR related training. So these are the things that ADB is kind of exploring, how to make digital skills, like the digital skill is now the new foundational skill, if you like. When you think about the 3 R's, or we should 3 R's and D maybe. So it's the new foundational skill that. So how to massify that? I think Michael referred to it. And also maybe also Patrick. So we are also interested in inclusion. So there are still large gaps and large barriers in accessing digital capabilities, digital tools, and all of that. So those barriers will need to be lowered, whether in terms of connectivity or in access to devices, access to information. So affordable tech, affordable digital tech will be very important. Kind of democratizing that access will be very crucial for inclusive development, which is important priority for development bank like us, and using real-time affordable tech to steer both learning and its assessment and its relevance to job markets are the most important priorities from ADB's point of view. Thank you.
Thank you, Shanti. Michael, if I could turn to you, but in the concluding, I'd love for you to connect it with the question that just came in from Ni Hua Lim, who said, do you foresee the government opening up skills training grants for mid-career to curate their own courses, not only restricted to local schools and Singapore-based institutes? So I thought this was right in your alley, Michael, as well.
Thanks, Keith. So quick answer to the question is, the answer is yes. Actually, we do work with a range of international organizations, leading educational outfits to bring the best content and best curriculum to Singapore. Well, what you're suggesting is something that's a lot more open and liberal, like you create your own course content and can re-qualify those. That's an interesting idea. We haven't quite studied that. It mirrors maybe some of the most liberal institutions around the world. But I think there is some merit to think about whether we can enable that in the mid to longer term, given that a lot of skills needs is evolving at the workplace, at the individual. But the system today doesn't fully support that. But something worth looking at. Sorry, Keith.
Mike, go ahead, Michael. Yes.
Yeah, okay, let me just respond to Keith's earlier question on where do I see some of the priorities. In the Singapore context, I think we'll continue with the momentum to build that agile, flexible, integrated learning system that we talked about, flowing from formal education, early education, all the way through working life and throughout life. And I think there is a need for better integration, a closer nexus with industry needs across the entire educational and training landscape. So that's something that we would be focused on. But I also want to say that we will focus on making sure that there's digital inclusion as well. Even in Singapore's context as an advanced economy, we have segments of population that struggles with digital technology. I'll give you a story about one of the things that we did during COVID. We had moved all our training online during circuit breaker because of public health considerations. And hence, there was a segment of population that did not know how to access online learning. We actually rolled out a special program we called Digital Learning Beginner Workshop. And through that workshop, we handheld a number of participants to access Zoom online learning And what the heartening story is, after about half a day, they started becoming confident. And the next day they came back and then they signed up for the next course. So it is possible to have that kind of digital inclusion. And we are also looking at working with regional countries to extend some of these skilling efforts to regional countries and to learn from one another's experience. We've done a bit of work in Philippines. We just had a webinar with Cambodia, but these are all countries that we would work with going forward as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Wonderful and heartening to hear too. Patrick, in terms of your conclusion point, and then pricing model, since you're in the union side of this, the pricing model companies should use for upskilling employees, how do they get the return back? Can you pack that in like a minute or 2 minutes of answer?
Yeah, I think actually I must say we are quite fortunate in Singapore. You can ask any employer in Singapore, operating in Singapore, in particularly this jurisdiction, compare it with any parts of the region in the world. There's a lot of emphasis and a lot of resources pumped in by the government to support lifelong learning, to support continuous education and training. So I would dare confidently say that no one is left behind. If you ever had a monetary challenge, there will be schemes, and you can call Michael or myself if you need any support in that respect. So I don't think there will be a monetary consideration when it comes to supporting not just companies but also individuals, because in fact when SkillsFuture was promulgated and rolled out, we have traditionally it's always been an employer-based kind of funding support. But now we have gone beyond that. We have also gone to an individual initiated training kind of model through the SkillsFuture credits and the various other SkillsFuture supported programs. So if you see many of the programs, including from the university in NUS and even some of the other programs that are available online, you only need to pay the net fee, and the bulk of it, the tab has been picked up. If there's any unfunded portion, you can still use your SkillsFuture credit. So it's been quite, for want of a better word, very expensive, as in PANSIVE, not PENSIVE. So we have been very, generous in that part of it to encourage, acquisition of skills. But I think two things I kind of like, as we look forward, I thought we can, not just do better, but to help tighten or the loose ends, as what Michael alluded to earlier, because we have a structural challenge in Singapore, the mismatch between skills and jobs and people. So I think one key thing is to minimize information asymmetry. We need organizations and businesses and industries to tell us. It's quite difficult today to look at the crystal ball beyond 3 years with all this that's happening. So we need to know where the future jobs are, and then we can find out what are the future skills needed, and then get the people to take on some of these trainings so that they can be better primed and prepared for any changes that come. And we have done that through the few iterations of the skills framework and the industry transformation map. But I think it's a treadmill. It's work in progress. It's a journey. It's a never-ending journey. So I think it keeps all of us here in this panel very busy and trying to keep up with some of these changes. But like I said, the information asymmetry bits, and of course, at the end of the day, I think today, as we are talking, one final take is that you just can't rely on just having just one skill and then be able to navigate for the future. I think it's gonna be at least 2 or more skills so that you are able to pivot and segue even to adjacent industries if your job happens to disappear overnight, like what we are seeing in the last 6 months. The rise and fall of certain industries, it's really remarkable, and it blows your mind. So I think it's good to ensure yourself with additional skills, and so that you can stay future ready and prepared.
Patrick, that's fantastic. Thanks for sharing your view on that and continuing. We all need to continue to grow. Atul, your last thoughts here.
Yes, absolutely. So agree with everything that has been said. I would really echo one point, which is take ownership of your own learning as an individual. Times are truly changing, and there are a lot of resources now available for everyone. And it's really baby steps. 1% every day is better than 100% over 6 months. That's never going to happen. So get started. Number two, focus on soft skills like working in international teams and understanding business environments. This is absolutely essential as we learn the digital and tech skills. We cannot undermine the importance of soft skills and working in a global environment. And number three, I would really say is find your coaches and mentors in the industry who can guide you along this process and this journey. The importance of those one-on-one conversations can't be lost. And sometimes it may seem like an uphill task or a big mountain to climb, but with coaches and mentors who have gone through this themselves, they can help you guide through this process. And again, there are a lot of initiatives in Singapore and around the region that can help you find a suitable coach and mentor. And for those who have the experience, do give back. You are in a position to coach and mentor many professionals out there, and we can all contribute in multiple ways, more ways than we sometimes give ourselves credit for. And I'll pass you back with those thoughts, Prof.
Thank you, Atul. And that's a nice way to wrap us up too. We all have our own responsibilities here. Whether you're a business owner, you have to see and look toward the future. Like Michael said, how will you survive? If you're a person working, you should be looking to support leadership. And also what we heard Patrick said, don't just learn one thing. Look at maybe a couple different areas, because the first thrust might not work exactly the way we expect. Be prepared in a couple different areas. Shanti, you scared me with the might have 14 or 15 jobs. That's that'll be quite a bit of learning for us. But the key takeaway today is let's not do this alone. Let's collaborate, private-public partnerships. Let's work with unions. Let's work together as fellow colleagues as well. And you're not alone. And I want to thank Singapore Fintech Association, Hock Lai and team for helping organize this, as well as the Asian Development Bank for bringing us all together. Let me turn it over to Alenna.
Thank you, everyone. It was really a great conversation, and I know that we have learned a lot from the insights from the experts. And before we actually close, I'd like to share that this webinar has been organized to actually address the problem statement of the challenge that we've launched at Asian Development Bank, which is championed by Shanti. And it is the digital reskilling and upskilling of the new workforce challenge, which I've actually attached the link to the challenge in the chat. So if you have ideas or solutions to the problem statement and you could address it in the challenge brief, you can submit your solutions. The selected solutions will actually be receiving funding of 20K USD for pilot testing. So if you have ideas and solutions, we encourage you to participate in the challenge. Other than that, we'd like to thank everyone for being here with us today, and thank you to the Singapore Fintech Association, SkillsFuture, as well as the Banking and Financial Services Union and E2I and the National University of Singapore, and as well to the panelists that we had today. We appreciate your time and effort and also your amazing insights, which has been really contributing to learning more about how we can reskill and manage the challenges for post-COVID era. So other than that, I hope everyone would have a good day. And thank you so much again for attending. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks everyone. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Thanks, Alenna.
Thanks. Stay safe, everyone.
Thanks for joining. Keep in touch.
Definitely.